For the first time, we've actually got fewer sites than we had in 22, but we have more members at those sites. And for the very first time, the market value means that the industry is worth more now than it's ever been worth before.
Welcome to this week's Escape Your Limits podcast. Our guest today is a firm favourite of the podcast, given the fact that he's the first guest to be invited back for a third time. Known today as the daddy of data and recognised as one of the most insightful experts in the fitness space, he's the founder of the leisure database company who release an annual and eagerly anticipated State of the Fitness Industry report.
I would say that COVID, inflation and energy have actually had a good effect on the sector. I think people are looking for a better experience and are prepared to pay for the extras.
And your reason for that is that if it's more expensive, that people are going to value it more and in turn they're going to use it more.
Price is obviously not a barrier.
So please welcome Mr. David Minton to this week's Escape Your Limits podcast.
Mr. David Minton, welcome back to the Escape Your Limits podcast.
I am absolutely honoured, and it's a great privilege to be here for the third time. Thank you so much, Matthew.
I don't think we've actually had anyone for 3 times, so you must be doing something right.
Well, I hope I'm doing something right in that we launched the State of the Industry report for the UK today, and you can grill me as much as you like.
So I'm allowed to kind of ask you questions without sort of giving away the need for someone to go in and read the report then. So I'm able to ask you some really probing questions then, am I, David?
Fire away.
Well, I guess the first thing is are there any big surprises that you found from going through this exercise this year?
Yes. So for the first time, we've actually got fewer sites than we had in 22, but we have more members at those sites. And for the very first time, the market value means that the industry is worth more now than it's ever been worth before. So shall I just explain what my theory?
Explain what that means.
Okay. So my theory is that that we actually have, for the first time, people putting their prices up, which is great, because I always think that the industry has undervalued what it's been providing. So we have low cost putting their prices up. So we have some brands that are no longer low cost. They've moved into the mid-market. The mid-market have been experimenting with additional value-added services. And some of those have moved into the premium market. And now we have what I think or what I term is the super premium market, where we have, for the first time, almost 100 sites that are charging over £150 a month. Now, when you start to add all those cumulative pricing policies together, then all of a sudden you suddenly end up with a valuation that is far higher than we've ever had before. Over 5 billion this time.
And what was it previously then? Where have we come from?
For 4.6. So
4.6. Okay. And what is that? What? How do you define that territory then?
So that's just based on the accumulative value of all the memberships.
In the United Kingdom, is that?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So those are all the 10 million people that have monthly direct debits.
Okay. And when you, so I suppose, so 4.6 to what did you say?
5.1.
5.1. Now, before we press play, you mentioned inflation. Is much of that down to just inflation, really, and we've not actually changed at all?
No, I don't think so. So there are 3 things that we should talk about. So we should talk about COVID, we should talk about inflation, and we should also talk about energy prices. Now, so let's talk COVID first, because that's an easy one. So, in theory, COVID got rid of all the sleepers. So people cancelled the memberships. The memberships were frozen, and so that they got rid of a membership. So, in theory, we've got rid of all the sleepers, which I think is absolutely great news because they were a constant embarrassment to the industry. Because how are we going to improve people's health if they don't go? So people need to work out how they're going to communicate and engage their members. So COVID got rid of the sleepers. Great. Inflation and energy pricing meant for the first time that operators could actually put their prices up legitimately. They could turn around to their members and say, look, our prices have increased by X. We've got to put our prices up. And you and I heard that at URSA. Almost all the international speakers said exactly the same thing. We put our prices up. And we've got more members now. And whether that was Scandinavia, Ireland, and America. And even Planet Fitness told us that 60% of all their members pay the higher price. So what people have been discovering here is if you put the prices up, then you gain more members, not less. So
you gain just on that. If you put your prices up, you gain more members. Why do you?
Well, because all of a sudden, people are valuing what you're providing. So, I mean, look at the luxury market. The luxury market is just boomed and grown so much since COVID. And if you took your wife to buy a Hermes bag, pre-COVID, it was 6,000. Now it's 10. People value, the product. And I think that if people are paying more for our product, then they value it more. They use it more, which is exactly what we want. So I would say that COVID, inflation, and energy have actually had a good effect on the sector.
And your reason for that is that if it's more expensive, that people are going to value it more, and in turn, they're going to use it more.
Yeah. Because what we discovered during the pandemic was that we had no common knowledge across the industry. We had no idea how often people went, and the operators were afraid to actually publish that information because they thought it looked bad. It was so low. Well, post-COVID gives us an opportunity to completely reset and say, okay, it might not be as good as what we want, but we know where we're starting from. So we can improve. It's going to be a KPI that we're going to improve on. We want people to come more often. How do we get people more often? You give them better experiences, more personalization, and you get some emotion going, like you do with me.
When you say that people are going more times now, is there anything that you're able to get from your data to give an idea of how many times typically people were going before and how many times they're going now?
No, we don't have that yet, but what we are seeing is there are certain brands like Third Space that operate dynamic timetables. And so what we're seeing is more people are putting on more Group X in timetables. More people are putting on more different types of activities. So by the very fact that the timetables are expanding means that we're getting more people into those classes.
Okay. But it's difficult to exactly pinpoint, let's say typically before the pandemic, people were going once a week and now they're going twice. That data is still difficult to really get a good handle on, would you say?
It is, but we are now talking to some of our CRM providers and partners so that we can start collecting that usage data.
Introducing the next big thing in functional training, the Escape Barrow, a revolutionary training tool that combines a loaded farmer's carry with a sled push to develop hip, grip, and core strength. Developed in partnership with Pete Holman, inventor of the TRX Rip Trainer and Nautilus Glute Drive, the Escape Barrow can be rolled, pushed, dragged and carried. The Escape Barrow packs a punch with an impressive load capacity of 440 pounds, and with a two-stage galvanized paint covering process, it's also ideal for outdoor use. So head over to escapefitness.com/barrow. That's escapefitness.com/barrow to find out more. Enjoy the rest of this episode.
Coming back then to the point that you mentioned that the low costs are moving into the mids are moving into the premiums are moving into super premium. Explain. So let's start with the low costs then, because that's been a big trend in the industry that, and it seems to be a category. If you look at the number of clubs that continue to be built, it seems to be a category that continues to expand. So what are you seeing the reason that those prices are going up? Is that purely because it's very, very difficult for them to remain profitable at the levels that they originally set out for? Or is it because now some of the additional services that they're getting asked to offer, in order for them to stay ahead of the pack, they've got to provide more services, which in turn cost more money?
Absolutely. So most low cost have what one would call a hook price. So and as Chris from Planet told us, only 40% of his 17 million members pay the hook price. Everyone else pays extra. And this is exactly what low cost have been finding here. People will pay extra for massage chairs, for classes, and even for towels. So all of a sudden, you find that the low cost have naturally morphed into the mid-market. There's obviously still a percentage of people just paying the hook price. But I think people are looking for a better experience and are prepared to pay for the extras. So our low-cost brands have found that. And then we have some low-cost brands like Energy that have moved out of the low-cost. They're now a mid-market brand, and they're proud of that. And the other thing, of course, is the strength of the market. So why give a product away for less than £25 if you can get 35 or 45?
Yeah, it's a good question. I suppose, being in the industry for quite some time, it seems as though, because obviously that's where the big boxes started, in mid-market, didn't they? You know, if I'm talking to people in the UK, but Fitness First and LA Fitness were the big first real big box gyms, and they were mid-market priced, and then the low cost came in, and then it sort of bounced back up again. I suppose just whilst we're chatting, not really related to the report in any way, but it's just interesting how that happened. How, I suppose, fitness seemed to need to go down to create more awareness to then come back up to. It almost seems as though it's found a certain balance again where it was. What do you think kind of happened there?
Well, low cost started in 2012, and the vast majority were offering it at less than £20. Then by 2018, we had to change our definition of low cost, because 3/4 of all sites were charging in between 20 and 25. So all of a sudden, we couldn't have all those in mid-market. So we moved the low cost up to 25. So the mid-market now starts at 26. And then we noticed as well that a lot of the low cost have at least 3 pricing levels, one in low cost or maybe 2 in low cost, but either 2 or 3 in the mid-market. So pricing becomes more elastic, and people suddenly realize if you've got the strength of the market, why charge constantly a lower price? So then we moved up into the mid-market, and then lots of the mid-market have been experimenting with additional services, and particularly wanting to move into health, wellness, and so then they are collecting additional there. Valentine's was a good example of moving into boutiques, everyone active in the public sector, moving into the boutique market and boutique classes. And then some of those automatically morphed into what we call the super, so above £75 a month. And then we now have 27 of David Lloyd leisure clubs that are charging £150 a month or more. So they have morphed into super premium.
What do you think we've learned from that? It's an interesting experiment. There's a lot of moving around. I guess people, as they go through this, are trying to define the financial models that work with the staff and the buildings and the equipment and the services and the price point. You know, and I think we were at FIBO, at the Europe Active event, where they were talking about pricing and how to position your pricing correctly. But what are your thoughts? You've been around a little bit, David. What are your thoughts on that sort of whole experiment in terms of different price points? Or is it just a case of, as the industry grows, there's a need for more fragmentation and different price points to serve more people that probably wasn't required when it was in its more of an infancy as an industry?
Well, let's remember from 2012 to 23, there's only 4% of the total market that's in the low cost. So low cost expanded the market by 4%. Well, personally, I think that's dreadful. Price is obviously not a barrier. Otherwise, you would have loads more people. I mean, why isn't it 8%? Why isn't it 10%? I mean, low cost gets a lot of publicity, admittedly. Low cost do a fantastic job, but I can't understand why it's not bigger. So then you look at who's in the mid-market, and you have all the hotels, you have lots of schools even. So lots of the public sector are in the mid-market, and they have historically been in the mid-market, and they have discovered that they've still got the same number of people at their sites that they had in 2012. So again, price hasn't been an issue there. And now, if I come back to my Hermes bag thing, now we suddenly discover more people are providing a better service than ever before. So more personal, more experience, and linking people in with an emotion. And they have suddenly discovered that they can put their prices up again. So David Lloyd, it's public information, put their prices up, and they've got more members than ever before.
So would it be then that if you think about then where things are going, we've obviously gone through a phase where it's like, okay, well, look, fitness, people don't like to do it too much, and the only way you're going to get more people in, the only way we're going to grow the industry is really to offer it at a really low price. And if it's so cheap that price of a cup of coffee or something, certainly where we're filming this from at the moment, then you can't say no. We've been through the pandemic. There's been a lot of these sleepers that probably didn't even miss the 10, 20, whatever's a month that was going out. And then they suddenly realized it was coming off their credit card, and it's cleared those people out. New people have come back, and now there's almost like the reason for people coming back is like, look, I'm coming because I'm interested in my health, and I actually want a lot more, and I'm now prepared to pay to get to really get what I'm looking for, as opposed to it be something that's a card in my wallet that says I'm going to a gym just for the sake of it, because you should do that. Now it's becoming, look, I want a result, and I'm happy to pay more to be able to get that. Is that
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Without a shadow of a doubt. And I would say that all of that adds up to signs of the sector's long-term resilience. So the growth in wellness, the growth in health, all the offerings at all the levels are pushing the consumer into spending on aspirational products that promote individual well-being. It's great.
One of the things that you've said, I think, in probably our first interview was everybody should have a personal trainer, and I definitely agree with you. And I'm certainly seeing some models over here in the US now where that's the case. Everybody has their own trainer. There's Safe Sweat, for example, which is obviously a smaller boutique concept, but there seems to be a lot more of these where you go in, you join a membership, and part of that whole program is you have an individual trainer. There's a number of Self-Made who we've had on the podcast before, another sort of similar example. What do you see that sort of model as it relates to the UK market?
I just couldn't agree with my earlier statement. I mean, it's just, I still think and believe wholeheartedly that everyone needs an exercise buddy. And whatever we call them, the exercise buddy is someone that helps you get the activity into the diary, and you feel committed. Otherwise, you'll let them down. Yeah? I mean, it's always been the same, and I really think that, and I think that that's why Group X is still so incredibly popular. Because if I say to you, okay, we're going to a class, then you and I feel as though we're committed to going. And I get up at 6 o'clock on a Saturday and a Sunday morning and go for a ride with my cycling buddies. Yeah? I mean, I can't be late. Although, and sometimes I don't feel like doing that, but I do, and so I think it really, really helps. And the more exercise buddies that we can get, the better.
What are you, or is there anything in your reports that you're finding about some of the trends within the facilities? You mentioned Group X, and I know from previous interviews that we've spoken to, there's definitely a challenge with staff, and getting some of these superstars is a lot more difficult than what it ever was. Some of them have gone on and figured out they can make more money on their own, doing online programs or their own businesses. And how are you seeing, if you are at all, anything regarding the staff, the trainers that would be running some of these classes, and any impact that sort of had on any of the businesses, or have you not really picked anything like that up?
It's only anecdotal. So I still think that people are having difficult staffing difficulties. I hear that from lots of different sources. So that may be one of the things that's actually holding us back. But we hope to add more information on that in future reports.
The other one that's kind of related, and you're probably going to have not much of an answer, but I'll ask it anyway, is the other big change and trend that we're seeing is this move to free weights. Now, I had a conversation with the gym owner just the other day about this, and he's he's talking about all the ladies that are now taking over squat racks, and we can't get enough strength equipment or glute equipment or anything like that. Are you seeing or hearing any of those things in any of the conversations that you're having as well?
Absolutely. Every club that I go to, the functional training area has taken over so much of the CV area, and free weights is unbelievable. I was at Elephant and Castle the other week, looking at gym box, and the free weight section just went on and on and on. As they said, it's the biggest they've ever done, but all they're doing is responding to what people want.
Do you think that the going through the pandemic has, in some ways, forced people to become or take their health into their own hands, become a little bit more of an expert, learn through magazines, through videos, through influence, etc. And now that they're coming back and they're a lot more educated than probably what they ever needed to be?
Without a shadow of a doubt. And I think that Google and YouTube are probably the first call for people to look at how they can improve their health and fitness. I mean, I was at a YouTube presentation last night. 23 million people a day just look for health. And the fitness isn't as high as that yet, but it's growing. Without doubt, the pandemic did have an effect, and people have come out thinking about their individual well-being, and that I think has filtered through into the figures that we were presenting today.
You mentioned three different sectors: low cost, which we've discussed. We touched a little bit on mid-market and premium, and then there's super premium now, which is coming out. What are you seeing? Because in your email to me earlier, you mentioned growth in health and wellness offerings on all levels. So are you seeing that the super premium are going beyond, I suppose, what has typically been fitness and workouts? And if so, what are some of these things now that people are looking as part of their health and wellness? I don't know what you would call it. Your provider in some ways.
Oh, again, so everyone's experimenting on the health and wellness. So obviously, both are general terms, but covering huge areas. So if you think most hotels have been in the wellness space forever, and so they offer the spa type product. So let's just think again, come back to luxury. So luxury and fitness merge when you come to the boutique studios, that you're going to pay £25 a class because you're going to get an experience and you get nice things in the showers, and it's personal as well. Imagine that when you get to Third Space. Third Space opened their new club at Moorgate in the city. Most people would have said, why are you opening in the city? Because Fitness First have just closed 2 sites in the city. But Third Space are offering far, far more at their club. And again, public knowledge, because Colin Waggett's already said it in Health Club Management. But they had 40% more members using that site than they actually thought that they would. And so they have lots of different levels of health and wellness. And people like Nuffield, who are already in the private hospital business, are looking at moving more of the health element into their gyms. So there is definitely a movement to expand this. And the further you go up the food chain, then that's where the link with luxury comes. And every analyst will tell you, luxury is on a boom. All their figures. I mean, in Europe, LVMH has created the first luxury brand to be valued at 500 billion.
Yeah, I saw that today on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there we are. So the people in the super premium and the boutique operators are discovering exactly the same thing. So long as you give them a really great experience, you make it personal, then people are prepared to pay.
Well, that's an interesting comment you've made. The fitness first, third space kind of example, both in the city, fitness first are coming out, and they do great clubs. They do really nice clubs. But I suppose it's, are we seeing? This is the thing that I'm interested in terms of the consumer. Are we seeing consumers saying, "Look, one of them's at whatever 70, 80 a month. Another one could be at 150 a month. I don't know what their memberships are, but they're probably not far from something around that.
A good guess.
So are they saying, okay, I want to do fitness, but if I'm going to do it, this is now what I want. It's like, it's like when you go to a restaurant, you can either go to a cafe or you go and have maybe that's not a great example, but you go to a nice place or you go to a basic one. I guess I'm wondering if people are just looking at it now and saying, well, if I'm going to do it, then I'm going to go to the best place. And we're not actually talking per month a huge amount of money. It's between, it's 70 quid, which is probably the price of a decent lunch for two in London, that's for sure. So is that what's happening, or do you think it's a different demographic that would be going? Because my thought on this is the people are probably just saying, look, fitness is important to me, and I'm just going to go to the best place I can do. What do you think about that?
Well, so generally speaking, we would all agree that the industry attracts the millennials. And the millennials, it was recently our National Statistics Service discovered that the vast majority of millennials are still living at home. So they have extra money to spend. But at the other end, so I'm a baby boomer, and there are baby boomers like Mick Jagger. We don't want to get old.
Like Mick Jagger.
Like Mick Jagger.
Me and Mick.
Yeah. So we are out there still strutting our stuff, and as I mentioned about the hotels have done really well because they are already in the food and beverage business. So then they can mix social elements to the fitness membership, and so many of them are doing great discounts, products, linking the two things together. And so you have lots of people going in and socializing as well.
Do you think that when it comes to choosing where you spend, because there's we mentioned earlier, we've had COVID, which has affected a lot of people and their earnings. We've had inflation, we've got energy costs. So there's no secret that people in the UK and in many places around the world, but we're talking about the UK here, people in the UK are probably have a feeling that there's less to go round than there was previously. So do you think as a result of that, they're actually making different choices? So instead of going out for dinner, which might have been because you're competing with all these other industries, aren't we really? So instead of going out to dinner, or instead of going out to the cinema, or whatever things you share your money, do you think that leisure and health are kind of moving up in terms of people's priority of if they're going to spend something, I'm going to put more money into that, or I'm probably going to, maybe spend a little bit when I upgrade my car. I'm probably going to spend a little bit less because health is higher up on my values than what it ever was before.
Health is the new wealth. So absolutely. Now, I was saying that earlier. Let me just go back to how low cost expanded by 4%. Right. So I've just written an article that asks the question: is the future of fitness gender neutral? And I asked that question because the 3% of the population identified as LGBTQ plus. Now, if we started to attract that population, then all of a sudden the numbers would grow exponentially. And then if we expanded the percentage and we got 3% of people that are 60, 3% of people that are 70, we would start to double the size of the industry. So the older you get, the more value you put on your health. And so I think it's a natural product for people in the industry to be attracting the older population. And obviously, I'm totally biased, but active aging is something that I'm absolutely passionate about.
Yeah. So going back to then the gender neutral thing. What road were you trying to go down there? I'm just trying to sort of understand that bit. Are you saying then that the fitness industry doesn't attract gender neutral people, and that if they did, it would grow? What I didn't follow that part of your comment.
So I don't know if it's the same in the US, but the whole question of trans and the whole question of gender neutral, it gets a tremendous amount of publicity in the press. Tremendous. But it's
good
a very small
part.
Yes, exactly. But it's a very small percentage of the population. And so I don't think that our industry is very open to that. But having said that, of course, sport generally isn't open to that. And sport is trying to work out exactly what it should be doing. And I think that fitness is lagging behind on that at the moment.
What do you think we're not doing then? Would you say?
Well, I don't think we're attracting people. So, I mean, we do have very specific classes here in London that are run by a guy called Ryan, and he takes over places like Vox, which is a fabulous boutique studio, and he has a following of gender neutral people. And so they change the signage, for example, on the changing rooms, so they're all gender neutral. And the people that take the classes are absolutely fabulous gay men and women. So they're bringing in the pink pound into the boutiques that are not necessarily attracting them.
Don't you think though there are? I suppose there have been some brands in London that have been very successful at doing that. Do you think? Do you think there's probably just not enough that are specifically catering for that? Because I guess it is a small market, and is it sort of like a new trend that we're missing, or is it just it's a small market and that's why it's probably not as obvious?
Well, 3% of the population is not small. So,
but what percentage of that are into fitness? I suppose, like everything. If it was 10% of the population exercise, and it's 10% to 3%, which might be small.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just looking at incremental movements, to get us beyond 20% of the population, because so we seem to have stabilized at around 15%, and we need to work out what do we do to get to the next unit, and so if we can aim for 25%, I can't understand why we can't get there.
Well, one of the things that I've picked up when I speak to a lot of people in the space is that the sort of default position is, look, you can't go wrong with the sort of younger demographic. It's a big demographic, and you just it seems as though when you're putting a business case together, that seems to be a safe bet. I don't run clubs, so I don't know the answer to that, but the people I speak to that I've asked that question seem to agree with it, and I just wonder why it is, because as you say, you're a boomer, I think I'm called an Xer, and I put a huge amount of value on health. If I look at what I spend on all aspects, whether that's nutrition, whether that's supplementation, whether that's gyms and everything, it's a big percentage of my salary. And in general, as you say, as people tend to get older, they're at different places in their career. In some cases, children have left home, not in mine, but in a lot of cases. So there's a lot of disposable income, and there's a different driver for health. Like for me, years ago, it was about picking up girls. Now it's about staying, having energy, being able to live as long as possible, being able to avoid sickness and illness. So if something happens, you'll pay anything almost. And I know a lot of people that do that. So I'm just wondering why, like, we've been successful. Low cost probably has attracted a lot of the younger people that have not had maybe too much money. And I'm just wondering whether now this premium type of sector is actually going to start picking up some of the sort of Xers and boomers. Are you seeing anything like that in the data?
So the very fact that super premium category has doubled in size since 2018 means that they are doing something right, and they are attracting an audience that can afford to pay for it.
But you're not really sure who that is, though, or do you have a bit of a feel for that?
Well, I mean, so our super premium goes from 150 up to 606. So we have one club in London that charges 606 a month. So I mean, people are paying for it, and so without a doubt, people are valuing their health, and without a doubt, people are looking to promote their individual well-being. And as you rightly say, people are paying for that at different levels. And it's great to have stepping stones throughout. I mean, I would never go and pay 600 a month, but but some people do. But the very fact that category has doubled in size, and most of it since COVID, it proves that there is a need. And what it questions in my mind is, have we as an industry been undervaluing what we've been doing since day one? Did we always undervalue the product?
I think we probably know the answer to that. And it kind of leads on to a question about the side of the industry I'm in. You mentioned that the premium sector is growing. What did you say? I just mentioned
doubled in size since 2018.
Doubled in size in premium sectors, doubled in size since 2018. That obviously is going from a gym floor perspective. That's going to require people to somehow differentiate what they're doing. I heard recently, I'm not sure whether it's common knowledge, but Matrix are developing a premium line of equipment to go for some of these markets. Do you see from a lot of the gym manufacturers out there now having to give some thought to what they're doing? And because in almost a very similar way to what's happened in the club business, the equipment side is in a lot of cases become commoditized. It's really, as long as it does the job, the cheaper the better. Is the case. It's I suppose in some ways for a company like ourselves, it's a little bit disheartening that that's how it is. There's a very low appreciation of some of the quality, sustainability. I know that's something that you're very passionate about. Do you? My question to you, David, is: do you see that there's going to be a requirement for more of these sort of premium brands, similar to that? There's an interesting company I saw at FIBO called, I think it was called Pent, and they've got these dumbbells that are thousands and thousands of dollars, and these benches made out of leather and stuff. And so I'm personally on my side, I'm starting to see that, but I'm just curious to get your perspective on it.
Well, I think that again, we're looking at a situation where I think it's great that we've got something for everyone. And without a doubt, our figures are showing that more people are prepared to pay more money for better products. Now, the luxury market says exactly the same thing. And you get an emotional reaction to people that are buying that Hermes bag. But now people realize that the Hermes bag is no good without your health. So now the health becomes more valuable, and that applies to everyone. So, did I ever tell you the story about my mother when she was in her mid-80s? She started to lose her balance, and so I just applied all the knowledge and contacts that I had to work out how to help. So one of the things that she did was she did aging yoga, which taught her how to fall. So in between the mid-80s to the mid-90s, she did fall a lot, but she never broke anything. So our NHS have a financial incentive to keep older people out of hospital, keep them independent, because then whilst they're at home and independent, they're still contributing to society. And so to pay someone to come and visit my mother once a week to keep teaching her how to fall without hurting herself paid off for the NHS because she was never in hospital for very long.
So as it relates to maybe fitness manufacturers, then what are your thoughts on that? Then is that just
so again? Let's just go back to the gym box. So the very first one that they did was in Holborn, and they had row upon row upon row of equipment. I go down to Elephant Castle, and they're now so much open space. It's great for you because functional is such a high priority, and as we've already talked about, free weights. And I'm walking around going, wow, this is so different to the very first club. And as I go and visit others, I mean, JD are doing amazing business, and they're growing, and they've got huge open spaces for functional training. And
with the staying on that point, we had a conversation a while ago about the I don't know what you would call it, the green movement or sustainably sourced products, and we're in a health industry where I suppose we're concerned about our bodies, but the planet, I suppose, is really what our bodies are living and existing in, and so do you see a trend? I know RSG are probably one of the leaders in this particular conversation, but do you see, as it relates to the sort of luxury premium, people now having the ability and being more aware of saying, look, if I'm going to put a yoga mat in my gym, then I'm going to buy a sustainable yoga mat. If I use materials in the construction, then I'm going to be very thoughtful about what those materials are, how how the energy that we use, and really sort of looking at it from a real sort of holistic perspective, as opposed to which certainly seems it's kind of a very, very one-dimensional approach at the moment.
So when I wrote my article when COP was coming to Glasgow, and since then we now have top 10 private brands and the top 10 public brands all have sustainability officers. People are now taking this so seriously. So the public sector are putting hundreds of solar panels on top of their roofs. People are doing ground source heating. I mean, there's just so many products. And if you're coming over to Elevate, I've even got a whole panel of people talking about the sustainability question and giving great examples of what they're doing. And I think the consumer also looks for that. So they add that to, and again, I come back to luxury just simply because it's so massive and they're leading on so many things. But the whole issue of sustainability in fashion is such a big thing. Stella McCartney, especially, is leading on that, along with so many other people. So.
You don't see it though. You hear about it a lot. Like I went to ISPO before the pandemic, and it was everything, every brand, every material supplier. It was literally everywhere. I was almost kind of blown away, and I went there, did a video, took lots of pictures, and I brought it back and I said, look, guys, this is something that we need to look at, because obviously these big brands have done their research and it's not happening for no reason. It's not a coincidence. And yet when I suppose look at outside of what RSG are doing, really, and I'm sure there are others, but they're not sort of got my attention. But when you speak to a lot of people and go around a lot of shows, I'm just surprised that the fitness industry is not a little bit more on the ball in general. You're probably aware of more things that are going on the ground, but I hear it a little bit, but I don't hear it as much as probably what I expected to.
So what we have here is we have people like the Gym Group, we have people like GLL, the largest public sector operator, we have Everyone Active, and they publish every year what they have achieved, the carbon that they have reduced, and what they're going to achieve over the next 12 months. So we do have lots of big brands actually publicizing what they're achieving on this, and they obviously tell their members what they've been achieving. So it's starting, and I think it's just going to grow.
No, interesting. Public sector, we've not spoken a lot about that, but there's clearly been some changes there in the market. Like what are some of the what are some of the sort of big takeaways from that part of the market?
Well, all the leisure management contractors are growing, and we've had a few local trusts get into trouble, but I mean, when you have Fitness First restructuring, then a small local trust, you could understand if they need to restructure as well. But generally speaking, the public sector has shrunk a little because some education sites that used to provide gym facilities to the public haven't reopened since COVID. But in the main, the leisure management contractors are all doing really good business, all expanding, and there's lots more opportunity for them. I'm going to say that might change because there was a recent VAT ruling, which we're all waiting to hear more about, but it's only for in-house leisure facilities. Now, there is a very small movement to actually take leisure back in-house. So in London, we have 3 local authorities that have taken their leisure back in-house or are about to take their leisure back in-house. So the VAT ruling will apply to them. And does that give them an unfair advantage? I don't think so, but we wait to see about about that.
I know there was some concerns about some of these facilities having to close because of the operational costs. Like, has that actually happened, or is that blown over now?
Again, it's very, very mixed. If people have hedged their electricity and gas, then some public providers haven't needed to turn down the temperature, whereas some others have struggled with the increase. So it's not a clear position, but what it did was it brought out the entrepreneurial spirit in everyone. And so everyone was looking at ways in which they could produce more income to cover those costs. And coming back to the environmental side, we saw on the timetables that they increased by over 400% if they were doing outdoor classes. So people were very happy to go and participate outdoors. And the whole thing of mixing with nature, we know, is really good for us.
With the public sector, are you seeing a similar situation to what you're seeing in the private, where people are now able to increase prices? And if they are you seeing them providing greater value in any areas? And if so, what are they?
So yeah, without doubt, almost everyone has put the prices up. Some people have just simply said, look, our energy costs have gone up by 200%, and we're going to put our prices up by 30%. And I think that people have been looking at how they can engage with the consumer more. And so some public sector people during the pandemic actually set up workspaces for people. So you'd go there and spend the whole day there, and then have a class, have some lunch, and so all of a sudden they discovered they got more space, so they were able to do things both indoors, outdoors. And started running clubs and just started doing things that they perhaps had been thinking about, but hadn't actually done anything. So it pushed them into thinking in an entrepreneurial way.
But the price point or the price question doesn't seem to have really deterred the growth or the success of that. If anything, it's sustained and it's also growing. Then is that a fair
absolutely? Summary? And again, it comes back to my point. Have we been underpricing what we've been offering all this time? The answer's got to be yes.
We've probably not done a great job. I guess it's in any sort of sales situation. Probably not done a great job of explaining the value that people are likely to get. I know. it is a sales in a lot of the commercial clubs. It is, it's a very sort of sales-led process in a lot of cases. But maybe we're not hitting the nail on the head in terms of what we're actually really selling, and appreciate that and doing a good job of explaining it to people.
Well, I'll tell you the big difference. The big difference is so the public sector now are saying we will invest in leisure, but, and it's a big but, because they're still working out how to do it, but the but is we want to understand what the consumer has achieved. Yeah? Is the consumer more healthy than they were a year ago? How do we prove that? And so they are prepared to invest in leisure so long as their community becomes healthier. So
you gave an example.
Yeah,
I'll go, David. I was going to say you gave an example of the arts of the arts sort of sector. You being able to demonstrate that. Is that what you're referring to here?
Yeah. So during COVID, the arts received £1.5 billion to help just over 800 organisations, and around 250,000 jobs were saved. And that was because those 800 organisations were so far ahead of fitness organisations in terms of collecting information about their customers, how often they went, and what type of customer they were, and the whole thing about age. I mean, we have no common knowledge about age across our industry. And so the sport and fitness got 100 million compared to 1.5 billion. And that's because the arts have been, by contrast, further ahead technologically than we have for many years.
How do you sort of, like, obviously someone's doing it in another area. What needs to be done? How do we change that then? Is that relatively straightforward?
Well, I think that this is where we need to collaborate more, we need to communicate more, and we need to change. The biggest point that we need to change is we need to think of being more transparent. We need to share data. So we could share data from it could be anonymized, and it could be aggregated. So it could never be pointed back to any brand or any site. And by collecting information in a more thorough way, then we would be ready to answer the government questions. Next time the pandemic happens, we would be ready to answer your questions in a year's time.
Maybe a collaboration with the people in the arts sector. Maybe there's gyms in museums or something like that.
Yeah. There's certainly exercise classes taking place in libraries. So absolutely, yeah.
Well, what I want to finish off then, David, is it looks like these things seem to be fairly frequent. So I'm going to kind of now put you on the spot a little bit, so I can check in 12 months and see how much of a futurist you are. But I was curious to know then. So you are known as the daddy of data, and with all this data that must run across your desk, I want to see if there's any couple of things, predictions for the future, which is always a difficult one, but I'd be keen to sort of see, some of the things that you think the industry is moving forwards with, and then a few things that we get a lot of people on the manufacturing side, we get a lot of people on the operator side, and a lot of individuals as well listening to these. And it would just be interesting from a business perspective. What are some of the things that we should be looking at or keeping an eye on and considering for our own business that are sort of ticking away? You mentioned the environmental thing, but it's a very large thing. How do we sort of so what are some specifics that we could be looking at to ensure that we're sort of setting ourselves up for where things are moving? So two-part question. What are your predictions, and what based on what we're looking at and discussed today, a few things that we should be paying a little bit closer attention to that are not quite here, but could be?
So I would just keep it incredibly simple, and it's just the same as what Paul Bedford's been saying for years. When did you last come? And when are you coming again? And what have you achieved today? And what do you want to achieve? So the whole thing of making it far more personal, and then give them a good experience when they're there. I love the way that MyZone and Technogym and others are tracking people both in and out. So it becomes more of a 360 wellness product. And the more people understand those things, I think the more information they will want. So keeping it incredibly simple, I think, is the best thing. And then the other thing that, and again, come back to luxury. The one thing that luxury does is it builds up a loyalty. You become luxury brands develop this loyalty, and they do that in lots of different ways. And I think that we need to learn how to develop that loyalty. So I don't know if you have conversations with people and you ask them, what club do they belong to? And most people will actually start to tell you where the club is. Some people tell you where it is geographically in great detail. They don't always know the name of the club that they belong to. There's no real loyalty built up in lots of these clubs. So we need to build up loyalty, and we need to build up emotion, because again, your wife will go and spend, £10,000 on a handbag, because there's an emotion there, and she's loyal to that brand. Now we need to build up on a similar level loyalty, brand value, and to do that, we need to be able to prove to people that we're helping them achieve the goals that they want to achieve.
How do you think, and I agree with everything you've said, and if you look at practically how we do it, a lot of, and there are exceptions, but a lot of people that are running businesses at the moment have come off a very, very difficult time. So financially, there's been a lot of pressure on price, as we've just talked about. There's a lot of, low cost operators. Maybe we've sort of felt that that's what people want, but they're very slim margin businesses in a lot of cases, and many people are not making too much money. So when you're in a sort of small margin business, not charging very high prices, then getting good people and investing in the long term of your business in technology, being able to personalize, et cetera, becomes also very, very difficult. So is that, based on everything we've said, is it a case of maybe considering the product that's being offered and try to build or evolve the business in a way where it can be generating the profit it needs to attract the best talent, to pay them well, to train them well, to invest in good technology, and to be able to really deliver on the promise that we probably should be doing?
Absolutely. I mean, and personal connections with the customer that is genuine and authentic will keep that customer for longer. And I think where that customer will then learn so much more about their journey, and then we're able to help them more.
Excellent. Well, thank you, David. I've learned a lot. I hope anybody who's listening has. It's been, yeah, it's definitely not what I plan on talking about at all. But that's always the case with you. You kind of end up in a direction. Was that okay with you? Like, do we cover? Oh, yeah. The most important thing, the reason that we're here, David, your report. How could I forget that? So tell us about it. Where do you get it? We are obviously going to put various links in all the places where people are able to see this. But tell us a little bit about the report.
Yeah. So log on to leisuredb.com. And go to publications.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, David. We'll put in all the links and we'll include it in our email and everything. And once again, I appreciate your time and sharing this with you. And thank you very much for continuing to do this report for the industry.
It's been a privilege talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you've got any value from it whatsoever, then please do us a favor, like, subscribe, tell somebody, and that will help us to be able to continue to do more of these and help you escape your own personal limits. Thanks for listening.